everyone. Welcome to another episode of Kick-Ass Conversations with Louise and Kim. We are here in the beginning of June. The needle just went off the record on that one. We are in June and we are joined by Michele Delgado, and we were going to learn a lot about Michele in just a little bit. But we want to get started how we always start. We want to talk about what we're celebrating this week. What kind of wonderful things do we have to celebrate here?
I am.
Either one.
I think today, so I know you said beginning of June, but it feels like we are in deep August, in the middle of a heat wave. I don't know to be happy or sad about that because I think it was 10 days ago. It feels like it was snowing here, but keeping me on my toes. And I think I'm celebrating that a little bit, not just the weather, but my business and all the things that are going on in my life. I like to celebrate that it is never a dull moment around here lately. And it gives me the opportunity to practice my pivoting in all kinds of ways. So I think that's what I'm celebrating today. It's just looking at all of the chaos that's going on and in just that little bit different way today.
Nice.
Very cool.
How about you, Michele? What are you celebrating?
Well, we as a family, my husband and I, we are in the transition of moving, downsizing, and starting a new chapter. So I'm celebrating when this will be over, so we can start and really enjoy. But June is a very it's an exciting month. We have a new granddaughter, and she'll be a year old next week. So we're celebrating her. We're celebrating our family being, we have a lot of birthdays in the summer. So we're just kicking off the summer and celebrating all the good stuff that's happening there. Business-wise, professionally, I'm celebrating that I'm having some really great conversations with clients that are like you're having those aha moments, and you can just really dig into some good stuff. So I'm celebrating that as well.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. Lots of celebrations.
Lots of celebrations for sure.
That's fantastic. I am celebrating as we step into June. I am celebrating the LGBTQIA plus community. 100%, 100,000%. I am proud ally. And with lots of family members and friends who I've grown up in the community and I am proud of every member that I know and that I don't know in the community. And so I am celebrating that we are in Pride Month. And while it is hard right now for so many, we're just going to keep fighting. We are just going to keep fighting because love wins. It has won in the past. It will win in the future. And I just know it. So I am celebrating that with all my heart, all month long, but it's actually all year long. So that makes me super happy. And that's really what I want to celebrate today. So
awesome.
Michele, and well, I actually want to, it's tied to that. I will be in New York City twice this month, which is phenomenal. Like I don't get down to the city that often. And I'm super excited that I'm going to be in the city twice. And the second weekend I'm there is when the march is there. And I've never been to the Pride March in New York City. I've been in Chicago, but never in New York City. So
wow, very exciting. When are you going to be here in New York?
So I'll be there the weekend of the 17th and 18th, and then I'll be there the following weekend, the weekend of the 23rd, 24th, 25th. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll be knee deep in boxes, carts, crates, you name it.
I know. I might be able to bring you that glass of wine or coffee in the morning.
It's funny. We went there the other day and my husband's like, okay, the refrigerator is working. So why not bring a couple of things? And I was like, couple of plastic cups. And he's like, okay, we got this bottle of ginger ale. I'm like, ginger ale? That's stuff.
You went to downsizing, not to retirement home.
So I can understand that, but that sounds great that you're going to come. And June is such a nice, although today it's like almost 90 degrees.
I know.
Yeah, it's a little toasty.
Yeah, I think we're feeling all across North America is feeling it right now.
Yeah,
It is a hot one. All right.
for sure.
Michele, let's let the world know about you. I'm going to read what you shared with us in your bio.
Okay.
So, Michele was born the daughter of a single Latina mother and worked her way into executive leadership. She founded Harmetrics with the belief that everyone should be acknowledged for their talents and encouraged to pursue their dreams regardless of their resources. Michele is a mentor with a passion to create positive change for both individuals and organizations. The mission of Harmetrics is to empower leaders who find themselves navigating the complexity of imposter syndrome by helping them implement systems to achieve their desired outcomes for positive growth. I love that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Oh,
Yay.
Marie's got tingles.
I did. Some goosebumps. I love it.
Thank you.
That sounds like a job that just brings light into your life every day.
Yes. This is such perfect timing. I just had a call with someone, and we can really be very hard on ourselves sometimes, and kind of just forget all the wins, forget how special we all are in our own way. And so when you can encourage somebody to remind them of how special they are, and they can start to feel it themselves, it's so rewarding. It kind of lifts yourself up, even when you may not be having such a great day, to tell somebody else you're wonderful, look at how much you've done, how much you've accomplished. That's pretty powerful stuff and very special.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know for myself, coaching was not something like I went to school for, and I always dreamed I would be a coach running my own business, because I would bet 7 years ago I didn't even know coaching was a thing. So tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so thank you for asking me that. You mentioned that 7 years ago, coaching, you may not have known. So I actually, my mom was an executive coach. And before she was an executive coach, she was a school teacher. So she was always coaching in some way. So I think that we were raised in that environment no matter what. Um, but before I got into coaching and doing consulting like I'm doing today, I was in the travel industry. I started out as, frontline booking travel, worked my way up, team lead, supervisor, all operations. I always had a team. Once I worked my way up, I always had a team. So I was always in that coaching and mentoring mode and helping people elevate their own careers. Um, from there, I moved into account management. And so I was working with clients and kind of, again, consulting in that space of their programs, mostly on the corporate side. Did that for many, many years. And then 4 years prior to the pandemic, I moved into luxury leisure travel. And again, I found myself, even though I was doing operations, we had internal clients. They were independent contractors who had their own business. And so part of our responsibility was to coach, consult, and mentor them on how they can grow their business. And we were support to that. So it's been a path there underlying all along. Then, of course, the world decided, travel is not happening. Um, we're getting a divorce. And so I said, well, gee, this is something new, because I had been in the industry for 30 years. And I thought, well, the last company that I was with, I was going to just, sunset. And that was retirement for me. So I decided in fall of 2020, when things were not returning at a pace that, was going to be suitable for me, I got some certifications. I did a lot of learning and reading. And then January of 2021, I decided to start my own consulting and coaching. So my thought was, oh, I would work in that same space of operations. I had that strategic process all the time in my brain. But I found that career coaching, professional development, just kind of fell in my lap. So, as you know, whenever you have a business and you're an entrepreneur, when things may not look so great, you have to kind of listen and feel, okay, what's the direction the business is going in now? And so last year I did a lot of professional development, career coaching, continuing to do that today, and still working within some organizations doing some one-on-one strategic consulting. And then starting to I've been doing some speaking engagements with some women leadership groups. So that's been very exciting as well.
So much fun when we can find that thread, right? When we
Oh,
can
yeah.
just pull that through and land in a place that just vibrates, just like you gave me goosebumps when you were talking, but it really does, right? It
Yeah,
just has this harmony when you can pull this thread through.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it did. You know what it was? It wasn't until, because I never thought when I was as an employee, I never thought about being an entrepreneur. Like some people say, oh, I want to run my own business. I grew up with, I need the paycheck, I need to have security, I need to have, X, Y, and Z. Um, I was very fortunate that during that time, my husband was looking to retire. We did well as far as to be able to save and to, manage and not be on the street kind of thing. So to be able to do this without even thinking like this is my dream was really kind of scary. It was like, okay, how is this going to work? But I had to pull all that knowledge that I was doing for others. Like, okay, this is what you do. I had to just kind of take that and put it into my own business. So it was really nice to be able to see that, okay, I do have the experience, I do have the skills. I just have to put it into practice.
What I love about what you just shared is that you, and I've seen this with many of my clients, but just many friends as well, is like
Yes.
falling into that, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I must not be good at this. I can't do this. Like speak into that just a
One
little bit.
100%. I actually, when I had the conversation about starting my business, I was talking to a good friend who's also a client, and I was sharing with her because even in January of 2021, I was still looking for a job. I thought, well, I'm just going to and I was an executive in my previous role, so it wasn't like I was going to take a job that just, um, X salary and jump right in. People saw my resume, my salary expectations, and it was like, okay, whoa, we're in a pandemic, we can't afford you, and you're going to ask for way too much, and you have too much experience. And then of course there's the ageism and biases that all came ramping in my head. um, so when I realized that I needed to look at something else, my friend client said to me, why don't you just do it yourself? Just go out on your own. Now, she's been an entrepreneur for many years. So for her, it was like an easy thing to say. But I was like, really? You think so? It's like, she's like, you have the experience. And then when I would get into modes, in the conversation mode to help somebody, it was like, oh, yeah, I can do this on my own, you know? But it was that, oh, no, that's not me. I can't do that. I don't have the experience. Yeah, such BS.
Yeah. And that's that, right? We were
Yeah,
talking today about unmasking the imposter within. That's that mask that so many of us wear. Like
yeah,
we're reading it from the inside saying, I can't
yeah.
do that. That's not me.
Right, right,
Right. I
right,
know this thing over here. This is me.
right,
That's not me.
right, right. And we think sometimes, as an early entrepreneur for myself, I still think early because it's only a few years. I think sometimes we forget that we don't have to know and do and be subject experts for everything. We just have to know where we have to go for the resources to ask for help or to get advice. I lead a women's leadership group once a month. I started 2 years ago because I just needed to be able to have conversations with people.
Mhm.
In the pandemic, you're stuck at home, and who are you talking to after a while? Um, and it's so amazing when you speak to these women that one little aha moment breaks open that chain for others, because we all seem to have that, oh, no, I can't do that, couldn't possibly do that. What if somebody finds out I'm a fraud? you know It's scary sometimes, but I've found a new trick that I go, oh, I'm having imposter syndrome, like I'm having a headache. Oh yeah, okay, thank you for coming, and I'm good now, and I'll see you later, and then I kind of move on. I mean, it doesn't work all the time, but it definitely has been a huge change for me, because if you get stuck in that vortex of you can't do it, or you don't know, or you're a fraud, it can ruin the day.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when we're learning and growing and when we're in those spaces that we really want to be in, right?
Yeah,
When we're learners and growers ourselves, that's
yeah,
the space we want to be in. And yet that's the space where we don't know anything
yeah,
most of the time because we're learning and growing. We're not supposed to know everything.
right,
But
right.
that activates that imposter, right? Like that just starts poking the beast over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. When you can acknowledge, I did a talk on imposter syndrome for a client, and there's one, I'm just visioning one of the slides that I had, and it's like when you can acknowledge that you don't know something, but you're in the space to learn, that's a very powerful place to be in. What you don't know, I said this to a client once, I said, um, you don't know what you don't know. People who live in that space, he says they're very happy. It's true. Who knows what you don't know? But I find that being in that space where I have to learn, that's a really powerful place to be.
It's so interesting as we forget that we're actually learning all the time.
Right.
We, from the time we are born until our last breath, we are always learning, we're always evolving, we're always growing. And yet we put so much pressure and emphasis on, I should know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And what's fascinating to me is like, when does that change for us? Because I had this very, I have a 13-year-old, and not super over the top confident, but definitely a confident kid. And she suddenly is in this place where it's, but I should know that. And she gets very upset when she doesn't, when it's like, how could you possibly know that at 13? And so when we, like, when is that starts, and how long do we carry that until we get back to this place of, no, but I'm always learning.
Yeah. Do you think that sometimes children at that age, when they feel like, oh, I should know, it's the pressure, it's the peer pressure of somebody else knows and I don't? Because we do that as adults.
Yeah, I mean, I think sure, some of it is that, and it's some of it. She does it with me. It's like I know something, so she feels she should know, and I'm like,
Ah.
I'm 40 years older than you. Like, there's no way you could know all the things I learned in those 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Um, I do wonder though, um, when, especially I think for women, because I can't speak for a man, but I do wonder if women, if they have that at that age, do they carry it so much that it creates even more imposter syndrome later, as opposed to breaking that shell and going, I don't need to know everything. I'm good right where I am. And if I need to learn it, I will.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this goes into a lot of kind of what I like to talk about and teach about, is how much of society we have, this very, and I'm going to use the term masculine, but I don't mean male, these masculine traits that have created the society that we're in.
Yeah.
It's these, it's very competitive, logic based, all of that, all
Yeah.
things we need. These are not bad things, and yet all of the more traditional feminine, right, the feminine energy, components of ourselves really get diminished,
Yeah.
in terms of importance, right?
Yeah.
Intuition, compassion, empathy. And so when we, in my opinion, it's hard for us to escape this, because it's everywhere and it's in every system, in every sector, in every part of our lives. And so how do we possibly know that we can know something, that we have a knowing, right, that is
Yeah.
within us, and that it's okay for us not to know? that it's okay for us to be vulnerable, because that's vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely.
So that is where it's like, because I remember my mom, who was very, she climbed different corporate ladders and was very successful and did very well for herself. And it was, what I saw was, that's what I need to do. And as I
Mm,
stepped into my adulthood, I realized I'll try this. And each time I try it, I'm like, I don't really like it. That's not for me.
yeah.
And so I taught myself to not feel like an imposter, because I was seeing it more as, oh, I don't like it. And am I maybe I will say the one place that I have felt like an imposter most of my adult life is being an adult. Like
Mm,
just that idea of being an adult, but it hasn't been in these things that I try, because I just see them as, I'm just trying. And
mm.
Louise, I know you like talking about the experiment.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a place that I've like recently come to, right? That's not at all what I grew up with or what I carried. And I was really a lot around this perfectionism and just having to have it all, know it all, like be it all of the time. And all is a lot.
Mm.
And I think, Michelle, as you're talking, it's like I got that from my environment. And it wasn't maybe the real story, but it was the story I created from my environment, right? That so and so was successful, so they must know how to be a success, right? So and so is doing this, they must know it all because they're doing a pretty cool job at it. And which just isn't true. But on the outside, we see people, we see a lot of shiny, right? And we see a lot of like, this is, I'm showing up, and like lots of folks are faking it until they make it. Then
Oh,
they're putting it out there, like, and they're fighting the same battles we're fighting inside, but we only see this mask and we're surrounded by this. And we don't understand there's another layer there. We don't understand that there are so many people feeling exactly the same way we feel.
yeah.
And when we know that, when we know that there's this community out there and that we're not alone, I think that's a big part of like, I'm not just taking off my mask, but now I've taken off everyone else's too.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm feeling so different about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I,
think it's sometimes the representative shows up as
mm,
opposed to the real you.
that's so interesting. It was, so there was a comment over on YouTube, and it said men are carrying this as well. So I do, like, there is an acknowledgement. There are 3 women here on the
Yeah.
screen, so we are speaking from that perspective, and it's good to hear, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we say this is an issue that women deal with, and we do and it is in a different way than men do, and men do carry it as well. So I wanted to acknowledge that quickly.
Yeah. Really good. I, you know, my upbringing, my mother was a school teacher, educator, and grades were always important, um, all of that. But I was the second born. So I always used to say, I think after my sister, she got tired of trying to beat that into us. Um, and my sister lived up to that expectation of education. She was extremely smart, didn't have to study for, for grades and anything like that. And I was more of the social one. Like if you give me something, I will figure it out, like a technology thing. I want to learn on my own. I want to be hands-on. Whereas my sister would read the manual, 1, 2, 3, and then she'd understand it perfectly. So we were definitely different learners, if you will. I felt that I didn't feel the pressure that I had to succeed so much in school. In fact, I was not somebody who really enjoyed school. I couldn't wait to get out. Um, but I enjoyed being in the workplace to be with people and to learn that way. Like the collaboration and the, oh, here's something. Let me do it on my own and figure it out. So I don't know that I suffered imposter syndrome then on that side. I think what I suffered imposter syndrome is that I'm not as educated or smart as the other person. but it didn't mean that I wasn't as smart as them. Like I kind of figured that out as a young adult. Just because you have all these degrees doesn't mean you're smarter than me. It's just that you know how to. My mother used to say this actually, and I think that was a big breakthrough in our relationship. She said, it doesn't mean that they're smarter. It just means that they know how to take a test better than you. And I thought, wow, that's huge. I took that for years because when I would be when I was a hiring manager and I had people who would have to learn something from me, I remembered that so well. People learn differently. Doesn't mean that one's smarter than the other. You just have to figure out what their avenue is to absorb that information.
And we see that so much in conversations around neurodivergency, right? Where and
Yeah.
it's both in the work and it's definitely in the educational sector and having these conversations in the workplace as well, because that feeling of being an imposter because you're afraid that somebody else is going to think I don't know what I'm doing because I do it differently.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I speak differently. I show up differently. And
Yeah.
wherever that whatever type of diversity we're talking about, when you show up in that space,
Yeah.
can definitely keep that mask on you.
Yeah. One of the things that I started to do, I do it in my business, and I took it from when I was a hiring manager, is that if somebody was sharing something with me and it's quick in their mind, I used to shy away from or maybe pretend like I got it right away, and I don't do that. And so what I would say is, hold on, I need to process this a little bit slower than you so that I can really understand it. And before, years ago, I would be embarrassed to say that because, of course, it's like, oh, I don't know, I can't. And so that imposter mask goes up. But being able to vocalize it, that I just need to process it. And I'm not embarrassed if somebody says, oh, you know what this is, right? I'm like, no, I don't. Please explain. So freeing.
I love that you just said that word,
So
freeing.
freeing.
Yeah, because it is a way that we can, and it's hard
Yeah.
because you don't know what you don't know if you're going to face somebody who's scrutinizing you or somebody who's going to speak
Oh, yeah.
not kindly to you,
Yeah.
and yet stepping into that. And I know when Louise and I were in training, there were a number of people who actually spoke into, I process this information differently.
Yeah.
Do you remember when that was happening, Louise? And the conversations afterwards of how empowering that was to be able to finally put voice to it. That was one of the things that I thought was it. I can imagine I've had it in different ways where it is, I just don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And having the power to, or the courage to say, I don't understand what's happening is that first step to allowing ourselves to pull that off a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I just did it the other day with my husband. He was explaining something. He's a fast thinker. And I said to him, don't get frustrated. For those who have been married and know what that conversation is like. Don't get frustrated when I'm going to ask you to break this down because I have to process. I don't hear or comprehend or visualize what you're trying to tell me just yet. I'll get there, but I need to process it. So I had to repeat it back. Is this what you're saying? Yes or no, and so that I can understand. But before I would have been like, oh yeah, whatever, and then just feel like kind of like a wallowing flower, like a wilting flower, not really showing up. So I think that's the important thing, is to be able to acknowledge you may not have it, but if you can, rather than being small, acknowledge that you don't understand something.
Well, yeah, and then it becomes like part of your superpower.
Yes.
Right? Because we process things differently, because we see things differently, because we need different bits of information than someone else. It's
Yes.
like, that's actually really cool. And it's kind of really good for the world that we all don't think the same.
Exactly.
And right. And by staying small, by letting that phenomenon, because it happens all over the world, right? To
Yep.
everyone. But by letting that keep us quiet, we're actually like missing a huge part of like what's making us special.
Right. Right. And it limits growth, right? For sure.
So my husband is listening. He listens to all of our episodes when he's not traveling, and I do want to share something that he's listening over on YouTube because it echoes, Michelle, what you were saying. It's having the courage to say, I still don't understand, right? So the start of I don't understand is just as freeing as that initial time that you say it. And then having a partner who gives you space. I'm going to apparently toot my own horn here, but having a maybe he has a different partner he's talking about. Having a partner who gives me space to comprehend adds that freedom. But that second part, right? I'm going to underline that because whatever that partnership is, whether we're in the workplace, whether it's in a personal relationship, in a romantic relationship, having a partner that you trust,
Yeah.
that you can say, that you can lean into that courage. Because even if you're very close to somebody, it still takes a lot of courage to be like, I'm not understanding.
Oh, absolutely. Because the first thing that happens when like he'll explain something, he's brilliant when it comes to math figures. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Calculating numbers in his head without pen and paper, and there I am with a calculator and pen and paper. That's just the way my brain is. But to be able to stop him in his tracks sometimes it's frustrating for him because his mind is moving that fast. But to be able to say, listen, I want to get on that same page, but meet me halfway or give me the space to be able to get there is that's work in a relationship, whether it's at home or in the office, because we never want to feel different than somebody else. We want to be like, the cool kids, I guess you could say. And I feel for people in corporate America that have to deal with that. A boss that's maybe a little too fast and they're not grasping it. And how often does that happen that people fail, they get frustrated and they leave,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, I know Louise and I have had conversations about how we process things differently, how we show up differently. And
Yeah.
there have been times in conversations between the two of us, as much as we have a very close relationship, we get along really well. I think I'm going to say that out loud to the rest of the world.
If
Have
not,
this
there's another conversation that's going to have to happen after
right,
this.
but it's that, and I think I've even owned it on here before. It's like there's still that courage of saying this is what I need to say, or hearing something from Louise and then not feeling like, oh, do I not know? Am I not showing up? Am I not enough? Am I doing too much? Am I over? Whatever those questions are
Yeah.
that come up, and that, those are all flavors that this imposter
Yeah.
can come up into.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you said that, flavors. That's really, I have to borrow that.
You're very welcome to. We have another comment over on LinkedIn from Heidi. The more we normalize to advocate for what we need, the more we provide a safe space for others to say what they need. Then we change the narrative. She's brilliant, this
That's
Heidi Power.
awesome. Awesome. The three pillars that I have planted in my business is, I want to help people regardless of male or female, because I think that, even though as women, we tend to hear more statistics, and even for myself, we kind of shy away from finding our voice. It's to help people find their voice in those difficult conversations. And then, when you are trying to figure out what page to be on or how to come together, it's to negotiate that conversation so that there's a win-win, so that everybody is feeling kind of like that kumbaya, if you will. And then I think, from my experience, my both positive and negative experience in being in corporate America, is being able to advocate not only for yourself, but for those who you care about who may not have found their voice yet to be able to advocate for themselves. When I was laid off from my job, I definitely lost my voice. Could I have handled the situation differently? Probably. Would I have kept my job? Maybe. But my voice just completely went out the window. And so that was one of the reasons that soul searching for the last 3 years about losing your voice to speak up for what your value is. That's part of the imposter syndrome as well. Like, I can't do that, you know? So breaking that down was really important.
Yeah. You said something earlier, Michelle, about, kind of talking to your imposter, right? To say like,
Yeah.
thanks, but like sit down and take a load off. I've kind of got this. And I see that imposter, like the presence of it, like when it really is like starts to tingle in us, when we actually can start to feel it or
Yeah.
hear it,
Yeah.
that's telling us something really important, right? Like we're probably in a really uncomfortable space, doing something new, doing something that's really important to us. And that imposter is just wanting us to be safe, to be small, because small is safe
Right.
for us, right? And
Yep.
so it's activated for a reason. But I think it's something to really pay attention to, because I think it's pointing us in a direction to say, like, this is the thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the important thing. That's why I'm here,
Yeah.
because it's important.
Um, yeah, I agree, and I see that, but I also feel that sometimes we make it up and it gets in our own way. And so when I'm being silly about something, I think that sometimes when imposter syndrome shows up for me, it's um, I feel like it's less important sometimes, and so that's why I want to like park it. You know, remember. So what I do is I try and celebrate. Okay, what wins did I have today? What can I celebrate? What's the value I bring to the table? So when I can go into that kind of conversation, I can kind of move imposter syndrome away. Now, when imposter syndrome comes up because I'm learning something new, that's when I see that, yeah, it's a sign. It's uncomfortable. You got to push through it. You'll get to the other side. That's when it's lessons learned or you're learning.
Yeah. I said earlier that I think that the place that I felt most an imposter is adulting. Louise, what you just said is small keeps us safe. And I think the reason why the aha that I had here was that reason why so much in my, maybe not in my legal world, I did feel as an attorney, I did feel there were times I was like, I should not be responsible for doing this right now. But definitely in my corporate and my nonprofit world, I played small.
Mm,
And I played small because I wanted to stay safe, because I was focused on the rest of my life. I wasn't as focused on what I was doing. I was doing fine. I had good jobs that well paying. I was creating good work in the world, but I was playing small.
mm,
And so what that aha was is, yeah, I do feel like an imposter when I'm stepping up to that growth edge, when I'm stepping into that next space of what's next, and I have and I'm acting as if, right? It's
yeah,
not just the facing the what's next, it's the okay, I'm going to take this step and I'm just going to fake it till I make it, right? I'm just
yeah.
going to act as if, and that for sure will have those feelings of I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just don't. And I think right to that point of having those conversations with ourselves, it's the you're right. You never do when you do something the first time or 15 times, whatever,
Yeah,
however
how
many it
long it
takes.
takes you to learn. Yeah.
So, in this conversation, we've talked about our own personal journeys with imposter syndrome. We've talked about a few things that we can do. We've talked about right that navigating and negotiating and advocating for each other. I'm curious what are as we start to wrap up here a little bit. What are our takeaways? What are our golden nuggets? What are those things that we want to make sure that we're remembering from this conversation?
I
I think
think, oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
you both! Yay!
We're excited about sharing. Go ahead, Louise.
I was just gonna say, like, this whole conversation is my nugget today.
Mm,
We don't talk enough about what's going on with us, and that's the key to getting over, or like getting through that imposter syndrome, for taking that mask off, to knowing that we're not alone. talking about it, asking questions, we can find our way through together. And so this whole conversation kind of gives me tingles today, because we are talking about something that everyone everywhere feels at one time or another. And if we just talked about it, we normalized it a little bit more, like Heidi was saying, then it's not going to be such a big deal. We're going to be able to play bigger, and in the game we want to play.
Yeah, that's so good. I couldn't agree with you more. I also feel that when you said, oh, I just missed it, went right out of my head, but it was something about playing bigger, you know, remembering that you're not alone in feeling like you have to protect yourself. You know, there's defenses that we do so that we do protect our well-being, and that's human nature. But knowing that you're not alone, that people are doing the same thing. What we see sometimes on social media, what we see in even in the workplace or whatever, is sometimes people are showing their representatives and not their true selves. And it that vulnerability screen that can come down, and you can start to open up. It just kind of it helps that journey of being a little bit bigger. It helps you move into that bigger step. Because I've definitely played small at times, and know. And don't you, Kim, don't you know when you're playing small? Like it's 100%, right? And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you move into something bigger, and you go, well, that wasn't that scary at all,
Yep, 100%.
I
Yeah.
did it, yay, that kind of thing.
What
Yeah,
took me so long?
yeah, you we showed up at the party now, but I do think that, for me, it's reminding myself that what we see sometimes out there, and we do that comparison and what have you, it's somebody's representative.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not always the true person. So
Absolutely. I love that. And I love the idea of the representatives, right? We, both Louise and I have done some work within internal family systems. So this idea of parts, right? So the different parts of us, these different representatives. I've done some work with positive intelligence, so around saboteurs. They're all it's all different words for that same idea of like what part, what mask, what representative is showing up for us in this moment.
Yeah.
So I love it. And yeah, I think I already shared my aha was like, yeah, you're right. I was, those times where I thought I should have imposter syndrome, right? It's like, oh, well, that was where I was doing that thing. I should have had imposter syndrome, but I didn't. Why didn't I have it? Because I was actually playing smaller than I needed to. So,
oh my gosh. I just had the aha moment of when you're playing small, you can almost feel like you're overly confident. Mm-hmm. And yet you're just staying in that small lane as opposed to really kind of stretching and growing. Yeah. Wow. Awesome.
Yeah. Very cool conversation. So, Michele, where can people find you out in the world?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So I'm on LinkedIn. I frequently hang out there, but I also have a website, Harmetrics.com. I am open to taking strategy calls with people if they want to find out more about me and my services. I do have other social media sites, but I find that the LinkedIn, especially in the business world, is one that I most frequently hang out in. And I also have a podcast. So there's the Heart Inspired podcast. I've been doing this series right now is on resilience. I've had some amazing guests talking about some of their expertise in that or their experiences. So the podcast will be running in through the end of June, and then I'm going to take a little hiatus and then probably pick it up back in the fall.
Fantastic. And it is a great, it's absolutely a great, I was going to say episode, but it's a great podcast. I did listen to several of them, and I agree, you're having some great conversations that people could really benefit from. I'm glad. So, hi, Dr. Alex, glad you're with us. And Heidi, I am so glad that you had an aha as well. A couple more comments that were dropped in there. Louise, do you remember what's up next for us?
Yes, when you flash it across the screen, I'll know exactly that we're doing emotional freedom with Taz Vakez. next week, and I can't wait for that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna have an awesome conversation with Taz next week, and we had an awesome conversation with Michelle this week.
We did.
No, not an awesome conversation, a kick-ass
A
conversation.
kick-ass conversation. I love that. Love the title. This has been
Michelle,
great.
thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We're so glad that you've been here, and everybody who joined us live and who's checking us out on the replay on any of the places that we are, including wherever you catch podcasts. Louise, do you have any final words for us?
No, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. Have a great weekend and take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye.